I'm Don Bryant, a community activist, grandfather, and current president of Cleveland Peace Action. I want to express my deep appreciation for Ramaz, Ali Faraj, Mark, and the owners of this fine establishment here today. Thank you for opening this up to us. And we also have some food donations from Holy Land. Thank you. And the other, and Assad's Bakery as well. Thank you. This meeting will be recorded tonight, just so you know, as you probably can see. So I welcome you to this community circle where you have the opportunity to share your impressions, knowledge, feelings. We will hear about people's struggles facing corporate, state, and social oppression. The presenters are then invited to discuss how their community struggles intersects with Palestinian struggle for human rights, self-determination, and their very lives at this time, as you know, and actually for their very lives for many years, decades. I ask that we start our discussion with those gathered here in the center. Our MCs will introduce them in a few minutes. But first, I want to offer the speaker's staff to a local indigenous peoples leader, Philip Yenyo, who will speak about the practice of group conversation.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Before we get started here, I asked if it would be okay to do this, and I think it's pretty appropriate to do this, to start this whole thing off with a prayer. Since we're here on our land, on my people's land, we're going to cleanse this area and ask Tunkashla, Creator, for its blessing. Oh, Tunkashla Wankan Tonka, Mani too. We thank you for bringing us here together. We thank Cleveland Peace Action for hosting this event, this talking circle. We ask you to help us go through this evening with an open mind and open heart. We ask you to allow us to have understanding of each other and help us to continue to love one another and respect one another, no matter what our nationality, our spiritual ways are. As a true family that lives upon Unchi Maka, Mother Earth. Ooh. As you all know, we face our own struggles here also. This issue that we're here to discuss between Israel and Palestine has greatly affected our community. I have witnessed on Facebook friends and relatives that are divided on this, people that are of native descendancy, and they're going back and forth between themselves, unfriending each other because of differences of opinion, instead of just accepting, you know, this is how this person feels. It's really quite sad that this is happening, and it's not just, you know, this happens all over the place, everywhere that colonialism has touched. And it's time that we stop this hatred for each other. The pain needs to stop, because our children are the ones that are going to be taking over for us. And if we continue to teach them this hate and discontent for each other, we're doomed. We are absolutely doomed as human beings. We need to come back and remember that we are all related. We are cousins. I sit back and I watch what happens on the news, and I hear the lies back and forth, or what I am being told is this is the truth, that's the truth. It confuses me. And that's what these governments, not the people, these governments are trying to do to continue to keep us divided. And it's sad that we allow them to do this to us. It's sad that they allow Israelis to do this and Palestinians to do this, and you know, it's happening all over the world. And I don't mean to get into a political situation between, but this is all starting to come to a freaking head because of people like Trump. That have no filter, have no understanding, have no heart, no compassion for each other. This needs to end. And I hope with this gathering we can come together as a group, as people of Mother Earth. And remember, we're supposed to take care of each other. We're supposed to love each other. All of our spiritual beliefs say that. And that's what's being forgotten. And with that, I'll just hand it back over to Don.
So I am not going to MC yet, but I'm going to introduce the first MC. I'm Jeff Kassouf. I'm a member of Cleveland Peace Action's Middle East Committee. But I'm here to introduce Amina Hamdan, our opening MC. Amina is a 2023 graduate from Cleveland State University. Yeah, it's a big deal. And a 2024 law school student. During her time at CSU, she initiated the Papivker series, who some people may know as the Cleveland Crusader, through the student-ran newspaper The Cauldron, and was the media and marketing coordinator of CSU Students for Justice in Palestine. She's a first-generation Palestinian American, alhamdulillah, who strives to make advancements towards peace and safety for every marginalized community. So without further ado, I'm going to be passing the stick to Amina, who will be passing the stick, the talking stick, to all of our presenters. She's going to do the first four, and then I'll be finishing us out. So without further ado, here's Amina Hamdan.
Thank you, Jeff. I would like to say thank you again to everyone who came out tonight, but I won't take up too much of your time. Our first speaker is Abbas Hamideh. Abbas is the founder of Al-Awda, the Palestine Right to Return movement. His ancestral home is Deir Yassin, and he can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Resistance48 and on Snapchat at Resistance1948.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. Are we allowed to stand or we have to sit?
Yes, please.
Okay. We have, Arabs don't like to turn their backs to certain people. We consider it rude. I don't know. It's just a habit that I have. So I'll be spinning around. So I hope I don't get dizzy. So I asked Don, what are we speaking about? And he said, speak about whatever you want. You know, oh, do I have to hold that too? Oh, thank you. All right. So I've been an organizer in the movement for about 30 years. And even within the 30 years that I've been organizing and been an activist, around Palestine, in particular the right of return of Palestinian refugees. This is really a pivotal moment in history. This is different. You know, we always look for achievements when you're active. You're looking for a win. I know some of us were discussing that earlier about council meetings and stuff like that. So for a very long time, we've been doing activism work, and sometimes people ask you, you know, and I know, I can tell you the Palestinians and Arabs in this room know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you organize a rally and you go home and you get that family member that goes, Hadarat Palestine? Did you liberate Palestine? You know, which is freaking annoying. You know, seriously. You know, for an activist and an organizer, that's probably one of the most annoying things that you hear, because they're like, oh, okay, you got, you know, 10,000 people. Right now we got over 300,000, right, that went to DC. But let's just say on average it was 10,000, 20,000, you know. And it's like, did you liberate Palestine? And, you know, obviously, like I said, it's something that's very annoying, but I feel that this time around, you know, unfortunately, it's cost what, almost 15,000, 14,000 plus lives, you know, to get to this moment in history. But the message I'm trying to give is persistence, right? And she said, you know, resistance 48, resistance, it's all about the resistance in whatever way. It doesn't have to be armed resistance. You don't have to run out of here. Resistance can mean just speaking up with your voice, okay? The Palestinians have tried popular resistance in Palestine for many years. They keep asking, where's your Gandhi? They're dead. You know what I mean? So every form of speaking up for Palestine, every rally, every function is a form of resistance. So this time around, I just feel like people are waking up. I mean, look at every city, look at every country. Even the Arab countries that used to come out with 50,000, right, are coming out with 500,000. And you would think that's normal. So there is definitely an awakening. I personally see it here in the United States. I was at a store the other day and I heard two guys talking at the cash register, and they're like, the government must be lying to us. There's something wrong. You know, 1 minute support Israel, hate Israel, support Israel. Literally, he was saying this at the cash. And to me, this was a proud moment. I was like, wow, at least they're discussing it. You know, when do you go and you hear somebody just randomly, you know, speaking about Palestine? Here's two men, you know, in their 50s and 60s, and they're saying, you know, love Israel, hate it, so they know that the government is lying. They know that the mass, I call it the fast food media, is lying, you know? So our work is vital, you know, joining rallies, joining functions, city council meetings, Cleveland. Man, I am just so proud of Cleveland, okay? For all the rallies, you know, all the functions, city council. We have something on the 20th as well for Playhouse Square. If you don't know, join us. I'm sure somebody else will bring it up later on. But this is something tremendous, and I'm really proud that my city here, I'm originally from New York City, by the way. I created Al-Awda, New York, New Jersey, when I first started. But I've adopted Cleveland since 2004 when I moved here from New York City. And I'm just so proud, because when I came here, let me tell you, as a New Yorker, I'm like, damn, the teams here suck. You know, so you gotta understand, you know, a New Yorker's mindset. You know, sorry, Cleveland, but when I first came here, it was like, damn, they don't win, no championships. You know, you go to the stadiums, they don't have like plaques outside what year they won. So, it's just, you know, as a Yankees fan, right, they have 26, 27 wins. You know what I mean? It's like you get tired of winning. But anyways, I don't mean to make this like a Cleveland versus New York thing, but I'm just trying to be a little mellow with everything going on, because you have to be lighthearted too. You have to, I'm the founder of Mama's Palestinian Kitchen. It's on Facebook. If you're not on it, get on it. There were people screaming at people for posting food posts. You know what I mean? Like, hey, there's people dying, and you're posting food. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult, so I understand the anger. People messaging me, say, why are you online? Shut the page down! You know what I mean? I'm like, we can't. You know, we have to continue, we have to live. You know, so I just believe in that platform. You know, it's a page where you go, you listen to the news all day, you see the dead bodies, you know, you see the babies, you know, being massacred, wholesale massacre, a genocide. There's nothing short of a genocide, so you need some space. Okay, this is an excellent space, you know, for tonight for Palestine. So let's continue the work, let's join the functions in whatever capacity you can, and bravo Cleveland, bravo Cleveland.
Thank you so much, Abbas, and I think that your message of staying lighthearted during this time is a great message for us all to remember. I'd like to pass over the talking stick back to Philip. He's been a pillar, community activist regarding all community struggles and is the executive director of the American Indian Movement of Ohio.
Thank you, everybody. You know, our community does, they do feel for the Palestinians, and they feel for the Jewish community also. Me personally, I love everyone, you know. But I'm just not keen on this whole Zionist movement that's been instituted there in Israel. I think a lot of people are not making the distinction between the people and their governments. I'm going to go back a little bit to things that I saw as a child. I used to get upset with my dad because he wanted to watch the news all the time. I'm like, I don't want to watch this. And I'm watching stuff going on in Vietnam and this place and that place. And my dad told me, he said, you know, if you don't know what's going on in the world, you're going to get blindsided. Back then, there were different rules for journalism, that different things that they had to uphold themselves to, and those checks and balances went away. So we don't know what we're being told, you know, if it's the truth or not. For our community, you know, we know what it's like to have your land taken from you.
Yes, sir.
We absolutely know what that feels like. We also know what it feels like to be able to reacquire land.
All right.
Or come home, you know. I kind of liken what's going on over in Israel as a family squabble, you know, where you're the parent driving and the kids are in the back seat and you just want to pull the car over and tell them to get out, you know. And I sat there thinking about this last night. I'm like, yeah, it's just like that, you know. If you two don't cut it out, I'm pulling this car over now. You know, but you can't treat countries like that. You can't say, okay, you go in that corner, you go in that corner, and sit there and think about what you're doing to each other, you know. I know as a child, having that done, I never sat there and thought about what I did. I was just waiting for the time that passed so I can get out of that corner. So it's a little unrealistic, and that's why talking circles like this are really important, so that we can, you know, bring things to the table and come to a better understanding of each other, you know. And I try to teach my children the same thing. You know, we had the One World Day at the Cultural Gardens, and I had my son that day, that whole weekend. And I took him to every one of the gardens, and the ones that had, you know, people there selling their craft work from their country, or they had food. And I stopped at the one, I can't remember, I think it was the Finnish garden. and we were talking about food. And I told my son, you know, the best way to get to know another culture and another people is through food. A lot of people don't realize that, you know. That's the one thing that we all have in common, you know, is food. So you get to, and it opens up the door for discussion, you know, to sit there and talk with each other and get to know each other. So I'm grateful for the food that was brought here today, and I think it was absolutely appropriate. And I just continue to pray for the entire world every day that this comes to an end and we can all get along like we're supposed to.
Thank you again, Philip. I think you gave a really great message. Our next speaker is Resnick. He is an active member of the Cleveland chapter of Jewish Voices for Peace and the Palestinian Solidarity Group. In addition to his pro-Palestinian activism, Resnick co-hosts the LGBTQ public affairs radio show Gay Waves on WRUW. He continues to work as a human rights activist and anti-Zionist every opportunity he gets.
Thank you. It is a privilege and an honor to be here. And unlike a couple of the previous speakers, Don actually did give me an assignment. I'm going to try to cover it. And as a member of Jewish Voice for Peace and as an anti-Zionist American Jew, it's important to be here. It's important for me to be here. It's important for you all to know that we are here. And it's important for everybody outside of this room to know that we're here. I am personally getting disgusted with being used as a human shield.
Correct.
Well, what do I mean by that? The Zionists, and Zionism is a disease. The more you know about it, the worse it is. The Zionists are using people like me and other anti-Zionist Jews. They're using our good names, they're using our good reputations, and they are putting that up in front of the world to try to shield themselves from the bigotry, the racism, the genocide. And I'm tired of it. And it's taken me a while to figure out that that's what they were doing, but it is what they were doing. And when you hear a Zionist make an accusation, stop and think a minute, it's probably a confession. I brought something with me. Yesterday, because I live in Canton, so the Canton Jewish Federation sent out a mass email. Federation, for those of you who may not realize it, Federation is not just a service organization of Jews. It's Israel lobby first, and that it's that way in all communities. And I would imagine that Cleveland sent this out too. This came from the Ohio Jewish Communities, which is the Israel lobby operation in Ohio. It says, please tell Congress, support Israel now. Say no to ceasefire. Now, you think about that a second. It gets worse. Urge your members of Congress to continue to support Israel by opposing a ceasefire. Let me go on. Congress is getting pressure from Hamas supporters to push for a ceasefire. We know a ceasefire only benefits Hamas, allowing them to rearm and recover. Gets worse. We all know from talking with our delegation that they are hearing much more from the anti-Israel activists than the pro-Israel community. We have the ability to change that. Democrats and Republicans, including President Biden, former President Bill Clinton, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Leader Mitch McConnell, Speaker Mike Johnson, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, all agree a ceasefire only benefits Hamas. Instead of a ceasefire, either let Israel defend itself or demand Hamas unconditionally surrender and release all hostages. And then it tells you where you can go to take action now. And this is signed from Howie Beigelman, the President and CEO of Ohio Jewish Communities. This is sickening. But I'm going to do the other thing that Don asked me to do, and that was tell you the positive stuff. Because they're resorting to this because what we're doing is working for the first time. You know, they had the Zionist Fest on the mall in Washington, D.C. on Monday. And they paid $250 to college students to go down there to take part in it. You heard just a couple of highlights from that. You heard Obama administration official and CNN commentator Van Jones booed for calling for a ceasefire when he said he's a man of peace. And he wanted to see the bombs, he wanted to see the rockets from Gaza stop and the bombs being dropped on Gaza stopped. And they booed him. Pastor John Hagee spoke. Pastor John Hagee is the leader of Christians United for Israel, the Christian Zionists. And John Hagee is so out of it that John McCain in 2008 refused his endorsement because he praised Hitler and said that Hitler did the Jews a favor by bringing them back to Israel. That's who is speaking for the Zionists who want the world to see them as the great people, and they are not. Zionism has always been about settler colonialism. It has always been about racism. So one more thing before I'm going to stop, because you did ask me to do this. So here's something that we can do in addition to what we're already doing. At the march that a lot of you were at on the 4th, the CAIR president stood up and said to President Biden, no ceasefire, no votes. Here in Ohio, we have a senator by the name of Sherrod Brown, who is gonna, if he wins, it's gonna be by a slim margin. And he needs every one of the votes from the people in this room. And he's supporting this genocide. And he's not calling for a ceasefire. And we can call for the same message from Sherrod Brown. No ceasefire, no votes. You fund genocide, no votes. That will have a profound effect. So I'm going to stop there, because the hard part is what we've already done. You know, as a gay man, in fighting these civil rights battles for most of my adult life, I can tell you that movement didn't start to turn until people came out of the closets and got visible. And I see the same thing happening right here, right now, not just in Cleveland, but around the country, and I'm loving it. So Where's the stick?
Right here.
Oh, okay. So, anyway, long live Palestine, long live Gaza, and long live Gaza's courage.
Thank you, Eric. I think we can all take away a little bit of something from your piece. Our next speaker is Faten Odeh. She is a Palestinian American Muslim, advocate, mother, and educator. She's currently serving as an interim executive director of the Cleveland and Northern Ohio chapter of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Prior to her current role at CAIR, she served on the CAIR Cleveland board for nearly 4 years and also served on the board of Cleveland Peace Action.
Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace be with all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Thank you for having me here today. I've never done a speaking circle. Is this a talking circle? I love it. But just like Abbas said, it's like in our culture it's rude to like turn our back on somebody, so I'm going to be doing the spin around thing. So I started my role in January as the interim executive director of CAIR, and I feel like, you know, God puts you in the right place at the right time, right? And I am doing, you know, being able to speak up for the first time, you know, using this platform, and it's been so liberating. You know, we had a press conference early on after October 7th, and I think the press thought we were going to say a different thing, right? You know, I keep getting asked to condemn this or condemn that, and I turn it around and I say, well, do you condemn the 75 years of occupation and oppression and the killing of and murdering of innocent people? And nobody says anything, right? But for the first time, it's been so freeing to be able to say those things. And I want to say that I feel like maybe in this room, we all kind of feel the same. We're tired, right? We're so tired. We've been working really, really hard because we're not going to stop screaming end the occupation, stop the bombing on Gaza, ceasefire now, right? We're going to make sure everyone hears us. And it just, you know, it breaks my heart that, you know, well, it doesn't break my heart. It just upsets me, right? When we have to hear lies and lies and lies being made about what's really going on, you know, and then we're saying, no, that's not really happening. And I guess that just shows you that what's really happening, our side is compelling, right? And I believe it was Philip, right? Philip that said, you know, we're all cousins here, right? And one of the things that is so, even though I'm so sad and I'm so tired, so exhausted, I am meeting so many new people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, that are reaching out for the first time, or, you know, the first time I'm meeting them, and they're supporting us, and I feel like something is different these days. And I feel happy to be a part of this awakening, right? And I think I'm just going to go on a rant, right? But I wonder if other people feel the same, and I'm guessing maybe you guys do, but when I go home and I hold my son at night and I think about there's mothers out there, not just a mother, there's hundreds, thousands of mothers out there in Gaza, and their arms are empty because their kids aren't with them anymore. And I think about when my son says, my mama, what about the kids that say my mama and their mothers are in the ground and they can't say my mama anymore? And I know I'm tired and I feel like there's no more energy left in me anymore, but because of those people who don't have their children anymore, kids who don't have their mothers anymore, I'm going to keep on going. Thank you.
Thank you again, Faten. I think we can all agree when we say there's strength in numbers, and the more of us that stand up here together and show up to things like this, the more change we'll see over time. I would like to open the floor to anyone that may have any questions or comments to the panel who just spoke. Any takers? Are we shy? Oh, I'm sorry, what is your name?
My name is Jacob.
Okay, and then, actually, I'm gonna hand you the
Okay,
microphone.
word.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob. I'm a student currently at Baldwin Wallace University, and to be honest, it feels kind of like a vacuum. I don't know many people who are very informed about what's happening, and to be honest, I don't know many people on that campus who have a lot of energy to inform themselves or who are in really a mental position to inform themselves. It's very heavy. And it honestly takes a toll a lot on my mental health too, just trying to stay updated and trying to stay informed because it's a lot. What really gets me down as well is that with such a busy schedule, with not having a car and not having money, it's very hard, I think, to feel like I'm doing anything at all, to feel like I'm effectively taking action. It's also very hard to find resources and find gatherings, because I do feel like there is a purposeful dispersion of information, so people can't find things like this. It was very hard for me to find this in general, so my question is, what can I do? Where are there going to be more gatherings? When? How can I vote with my dollars? How can I vote? What can I do to stay informed and to stay active and to make effective action as well?
So these are excellent questions. This is why at every rally, when we first start the rally, people think I'm crazy, but the first thing is connection, right? Because you don't want to just do a rally, go home, and it's over, So here's, just so everybody knows, and probably most of the people here in the room know, so there's Cleveland, Palestine on Instagram.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Palestine. Okay.
Wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Cleveland.Palestine. Yeah.
Cleveland.Palestine on Instagram. Another Instagram is basically mine, but I always use it for Palestine. So it's Resistance 48. Okay.
PCRF.net.
PCRF.net.
CAIR Ohio Cleveland.
CAIR Ohio Cleveland.
On Instagram.
Palestinian Youth Movement. Anybody else?
Jewish Voice for Peace,
SJP, CSU SJP.
SJP, CSU, Jewish Voices for Peace.
Are you getting those?
Yeah. So if you just follow, even if you just follow one of them, you're going to see all of that, because we basically, and this is something, again, there's an awakening. So this is something that we saw this time around. People are just like, they're no, I used to do rallies just for Al-Awda. This time around, everybody wants to be involved. Everybody. So it's important to keep the connections, and obviously the websites. There's so many different organizations. So if you follow one, eventually it'll lead you to all. Okay.
Google Cleveland Peace Action.
Oh, Cleveland Peace Action too. Yes.
I just want to respond to that, and I can speak loud. Okay. But I very concretely want to say that we have an art build on Sunday where you can have a chance and help us prepare for a protest on Monday, where we will be shutting it down and for a event where Max Miller, Chantel Brown, Governor DeWine, and Mayor Bibb will all be there, so please show up. I also just quickly want to add that Cleveland right now is just in such a prime position to do this work and to lead the nation in this work. We are at a place where we have a lot of political power with our vote, and we have people in our House of Representatives, even in our state, that we can really lobby to divest from Israel. So every call you make matters, as Eric already mentioned, if they're already running scared. And we Ohio is deeply invested in Israel, and we have to be the banner to help create a divestment there. And so show up on Monday, come hang out with us. There's a teach-in at Algebra Tea House with PSL on Sunday night. Like, if you want to do something, there's something going on.
And bring other students with you.
Jacob, I just want to say you have taken the first at least 3 steps by showing up here tonight. So I don't buy it that you're not able to do much because you've already disproven that. I think in addition to the website, so some concrete things, I think Monday's going to be fabulous, and I'm looking forward to it.
4
At Playoff Square.
If you can be there. But the big thing that you can do is go back to Baldwin Wallace and talk. These folks from SJP at Cleveland State will tell you the power of talking.
Or Case, or
Or Case, or UAkron, everywhere. And universities are a great place to do it. And by the way, be prepared for garbage. And when you get the garbage, reach out to us, because we know there are people in this room who have been through that mill too, and we know what to do with it. But you have more power than you think. And thank you for coming out tonight.
Okay, we do have one more question, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Sam Salim, I was just wondering if you can send out an email about that event on Monday so I can forward it to a lot of people.
Yes.
So I was actually just going to piggyback off of his comment, but I think another thing that we can do, you mentioned voting with his dollar, but another thing that we can do is follow the BDS sort of guidance of companies to boycott that are actively supporting Israel and actively supporting violence in Gaza. So looking up the BDS lists, they do change fairly regularly, but there are some key companies that are kind of recommended to be boycotted. So I think that's a place that you can start too.
Yes.
Yeah, Donald's, a couple others.
Thank you guys so much for asking those questions and comments. It's really good to hear back from the community, but I do, did you have something?
Hello. Okay. CAIR actually has an action alert, and if you find me, I'll try to send it to you. If you fill it out, it will contact your members of Congress to call for a ceasefire. We have gotten thousands, hundreds of thousands of signatures, and hopefully once we've gotten a good amount, we'll start meeting with our legislators, and that's one thing that you can do. So find me after.
Thank you so much, Faten. So I'm going to hand over the mic back to my co-MC, Jeff Kassouf. He is an Arab American and a member of Cleveland Peace Action's Middle East Committee. Graduating in 2017 from Cleveland State University, Jeff works in the engineering data services field. He has been a lifelong activist on justice for Palestinians, Arabs, and Black Americans. And he's also campaigned for Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner due to their initial support for Palestine.
Thank you, Amina. So before I get on with our other speakers, we have a special guest with us here tonight, representing the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and that would be Nadra Farhat. So, Nadra.
Thank you. I'm not usually the one who speaks in our steering committee, but I was nominated to speak today. So thank you so much for having me. So I wanted to kind of talk about the PCRF, Palestine Children's Relief Fund. So for over 30 years, PCRF has been helping children in the Middle East by leading medical missions into the Middle East, arranging for children to receive medical care through a treatment abroad, and sponsoring humanitarian programs. In response to the urgent needs of children in Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, PCRF runs a wide range of ongoing programs and one-time projects to address humanitarian needs brought on by poverty, war, occupation, and siege. Again, I wanted to thank you all for being here today and for having me. Here's the formal written speech. So the Palestine Children's Relief Fund thanks the organizers of this event, as well as all in the room, for their continued support and critical work, being done to continue to put the children of Palestine at the forefront. Over the last 40 days, a catastrophe of unprecedented proportions continues to unfold in a deep trail of destruction and unimaginable human suffering. The non-stop Israeli military bombardment of the civilian population in Gaza has now claimed over 11,000 innocent lives, with over 8,000 of that being women and children. Over 1 million people have been displaced, as this is being done without guarantees of safety or return to their homes, and what seems to be no clear end in sight to their suffering. Essential resources like electricity, water, food, fuel have been continuously, deliberately cut off, pushing the civilian population to the brink of desperation. Did I lose it? Hello?
They're both up.
Oh, it's okay.
There's a Zionist in the speaker.
Hospitals have are overwhelmed and unable to provide adequate medical care due to the lack of medical supplies, electricity, and clean water. Emergency medical aid is being denied entry. Ambulances are being bombed, and vehicles carrying aid are being targeted by airstrikes. The urgent intervention of the international community is critical now more than ever. PCRF has been on the ground working to find ways to aid in Gaza. With resources scarce within Gaza, PCRF is sourcing items from both Egypt and Jordan. PCRF has been on the ground, and PCRF has been able to purchase $1 million worth of medicine and medical supplies so far through trusted and vetted vendors, mainly through Jordan, and are on their way to Gaza from Jordan via air freight. Other items we've been able to source and provide include lab materials, milk for children, and various medical devices and supplies, totaling roughly $3.6 million worth of interventions. PCRF is also helping to facilitate logistic and medical treatment for sick and injured children outside of Gaza. This is all thanks to the donations coming in from people like you in the room. PCRF joins other humanitarian organizations and people of goodwill in calling on international community to provide immediate humanitarian aid, intensify diplomatic efforts for an immediate ceasefire, ensure accountability for violations of international law, and actively support Gaza's reconstruction. Silence in the face of such tragedy is complicity, and the time is to act now. To act now. Sorry, I'm not a big kid. So, on a personal note, I've been with the PCRF since I was little. I've witnessed the good that the PCRF does. This summer, we had 3 children, all amputees, that came and got prosthetics. They were all from Gaza, and we all wish that they didn't have to go back because every day we're trying to get a hold of them to see if they're still alive. It is probably one of the best organizations to be a part of. I always dreamed when I was little to make a difference, and I feel honored to be a part of the organization. I've met a lot of amazing people, and people are so generous. They're going to be doing so many missions. We have doctors, nurses, people that are on standby as soon as they let them in. You have no idea how many people there are in the country and in the world actually, that are doing so much good. So your donations make a difference. PCRF is very transparent about everything that it does. I mean, they send out updates, let you know everything. I will say we've had some calls with some of the doctors that are on the ground, and it's pretty devastating, beyond even how devastating of what we see on the news and on Instagram and the actual news that's real, not the mainstream media. It is even beyond that. I mean, these kids are starving, they have no clean water. it is just beyond devastation. We, the Cleveland chapter, with all the help and donations, we built a cancer hospital, pediatric cancer hospital in Rantisi Hospital in Gaza, which has now been bombed. So we have so much work to do, so much rebuilding that needs to be done. Jacob, we are always looking for volunteers to come and support. There's so many people, and I know last time, I think it was Chance who said, he does so much, he's tired, right? Because, there's a few people here that are at every event that do so much, and we have to all do more. And we have to stand with them and help them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadra.
We're going to watch the short video.
So we're going to actually watch a short film from the PCRF, I believe, which is right on the wall behind you.
Mansour lost both his legs and his hands. His 14-year-old sister, Safa, suffered severe burns.
Once I met Mansour, met the individual that he is, and became friends with him, I felt it was my duty to try to help him as his friend.
I think storytelling for PCR is really the key for connecting people outside of the struggle in Palestine and the human struggle, the impact that the occupation has every day on the lives of everyday people.
11-year-old Hamid El-Virab lost his leg during an attack in May near his refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. It happened while he was going home from school, and it was in a crowd of people.
Stories shared to highlight change and hope, from medical missions to an inside look into PCRF's first pediatric cancer hospital.
ولا لتبديد أجواء الحزن فتحلى محله ضحكات الأطفال ونويهم وطواقم التمريض فيما يبدو جزءا من علاج يساعد أولئك الأطفال على تخطي ما قد يكون أصعب مراحل حياتهم. شيرين أبو عقل، الجزيرة، بيجانا.
I have much respect and appreciation and admiration for the journalists like Shereen and so many others who are every day on the ground putting their lives in danger to get the stories out to the rest of the world about what Palestinian life is like under military occupation.
I think it's important to raise awareness about what's going on in Palestine and to give a voice to the voiceless.
Each and every person holding a powerful message, a story shared to connect, influence, and inspire.
It's a symbol of what we can do when we come together and work together. Every child that we treat seems to have some kind of story, unique story that is in many ways inspiring and often many extremely sad as well. And if we can come in and obviously do something good for these kids and help, in this case, save a life, that inspires each of us every day to keep going and continue our mission.
So for anybody that didn't know, the one Al Jazeera reporter in the video was Shereen Abu-Akleh, who was a Palestinian reporter, pretty much the Katie Couric of the Middle East, I would say. Is
global icon.
A global icon, really. She was in millions and millions and millions of people's homes around the world. Arabs, others.
American citizen.
She was an American citizen, yes, and it's been found now through independent investigations that it appears she was assassinated by Israeli occupation forces. And I know for me and my family and our community, it is very dear to us because what a lot of people don't know, Shereen was also Rum. She was Melkite Greek Catholic. My family also is Melkite Greek Catholic. So for us, it was a big, big deal when she died because it was a high-profile figure in the Middle East. And it really shows you that it's not about one religion or the other. It's about the eradication of a whole culture and a whole nation and silencing those who are showing exactly what's going on. So I want to thank Palestine Children's Relief Fund for preparing that video for us. But moving on, I'm going to grab the stick and introduce our next speaker, who is Alfred Porter Jr. He is staff at Hood Famous TV and a promotional representative at Black House Sound Open Mic. He has also worked with Voice It Radio and ECMD International Music and Film Distribution, studied real life at the School of Hard Knocks, the University of Life. So I'm sure he's got a lot to teach us. So without further ado, here's Alfred Jr.
For at least the first 2 minutes out of 5, I will at least use this to get to my homework assignment, which was to just bring certain facts. So may the Creator guide my words. I'm here on behalf of the Dialogue Center, and that's the headquarters of Black on Black Crime Incorporated, Black Man's Army, Black Women's Army, Survivors, Victims of Tragedy, Black Lives Matter, Cuyahoga County, Fathers Lives Matter, Man to Man, and the Hip Hop Workshop. The DialogueCenter.net. If I was to start off with a question, how can I, man of color, relate to Gaza being occupied, we'll say 75 plus years. And then I look at the fact, my answer real quick is for 400 plus years. My people in America, from lynchings to the horrors of slavery that still exist to this very day. If we were to ask the question, how can I relate to marauding Zion forces rolling through Gaza, striking fear, stress on Palestinians on their rightful land, but not just oppressing and causing stress to people and Palestinians and others who are not in Gaza, affected the world over, then you have to look at how my people are affected. When in Cleveland, through East Cleveland, on November 29th, which is upcoming, 67 plus cop cars marauded. It chased Timothy Russell, Melissa Williams, and no one was charged over 137 shots. When you look at the fact, no supervisors fired, or if you look at what happened with Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, and everybody got a slap on the wrist. If you look at the question of what do we see when we see 800, 900, 1,000 plus Palestinians and Arabs, concerned citizens who march on the city of Cleveland so that the city wakes up with facts. How is that so different from when you see hundreds of us march on the same city demanding justice? Now, as I put this down for about 2 to 3 minutes to follow the rules, that is something I have to follow because my fiance, Danielle Wood, she has to put up with a lot. If I take hits, she takes hits. Let's talk about solutions. Brother Abbas, who's been my brother, and I've gotten a chance to speak to him and in front of his people and rallies. Let's be very candid on this. Solutions. We're all a family. So let's talk about quick solutions that happen. I remember a brother by the name of Sam on the Art McCoy radio show, the University of Common Sense, and he brought up a few years back, why don't we have something where more people of color can talk to store owners who are Arab and Palestinian and get on the same page? So this is what I'm proposing to do because it's very real. You said it, we're all cousins, we're all related. So why is it that the ones who have to work with each other, live around each other, depend on each other? Bishop Minor, I have to go here. A lot of us have to depend on each other, but we let Zion or outside forces cause us to feel like we're divided against each other. So my role, What I'm proposing to do myself is to be able to use, there are a lot of beautiful universities here. I happen to be thankful because Cleveland State University allows us to have a hip hop workshop once a month, first Saturday of the month, because of the Department of Africana Studies. But my role for my people and what I see proposed, and that's why I brought up Brother Abbas' name and a couple of others, is that places that are headquarters, such as Black on Black Crime Inc., where Dr. Dorothy came in yesterday to let us know the importance of this coming Monday's rally, is that we start getting dialogue, real dialogue, between store owners, Arab, Palestinian, doesn't matter. But we get those type of dialogues so that we quit having those misconceptions of our stereotyping by people who have to depend on them for opening up in our communities. At the same time, you have the proper dialogue so that as I prepare to wrap things up, our people are not stereotyping store owners who are doing their best to make a living in our community, because it is just as wrong if I, who know better, allow the younger generation and those to go and say, well, those camel, those sand. It's as offensive as if those store owners are allowed to say, these dumb, when we all can work together, because the same hundreds who have gone out there even recently to hold Mayor Bibb accountable for what he said he was going to do to our community, the same thing that he promised for my community and where we live is the same promise that he gave to Arab and others, to be fair and mindful. And if you're just going off of what's going on Gaza and just taking the side of the ones who are dropping bombs on the people whose land they stole,
that's right.
It would be even more powerful if the people in my community who shop at the stores work with the people who own the stores to be able to select the correct politicians, follow our own dreams, work together, and have real power, because we already have it. Because in a lot of these marches, the same flag that I proudly wear, that I was given when I got a chance to speak in front of you all years ago, are out there questioning the decision of the government. It's the same that when I use this and I question the same with God, red, black, and green on the fact that we are all not treated right. So that's what I am proposing. That's what I intend to do, and I thank you.
Thank you, Al. That was very, very powerful, and I think you made a great point. You know, we all live in the same communities here in Cleveland and the greater metro area. We shop at each other's stores, we interact with each other, so we have those community connections, and that's a very great point. So next, I'm going to move on and introduce our next speaker, who is Chance Ahmad. Chance is a Black Palestinian, recent law school graduate based out of Cleveland, Ohio. Chance is a member of the organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement, which is a transnational, independent, grassroots, community-based movement of young Palestinians. He's worked to facilitate workshops, protests, and to educate the greater Northeast Ohio community on Palestine. He also organizes with a collective of Palestinians from Cleveland to push further for the liberation of Palestine. So without further ado, here's Chance.
Thank you. Wow, I really had to go after you. A tough bar that you just set, but so first of all, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak. I've been one of the organizers for a lot of the protests here, as well as Abbas, as well as CAIR, as well as Shereen in the back, and a lot of the other organizers. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for continuing to keep our movement going, because at the end of the day, we count on you. I want to talk a little bit about my experience and journey as a Palestinian organizer. I started out at SJP at Kent State. When I started, I didn't know anything, and then quickly I became the president, and so at that point, you know, we all have a duty. We all have a duty and we have a responsibility to step up, especially for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. My family is from Gaza, so when I look at, you know, my responsibility is to advocate for others that are putting their bodies on the line, that are putting their souls and everything into our liberation struggle. So the first experience that I had was during the Great Return March. And so I got to see the bravery of people in Gaza, going every week, doing protests, going to the border, and being brutally killed and maimed by the Israeli forces. And that was the thing that got me going. And so the thing that's going to get a lot of the younger people going right now is what's going on in Palestine. We're seeing a resurgence of our struggle, and we're seeing hope for a lot of the people around the world, in the United States, and in Ohio. So with that, we can remain hopeful because a lot of people are waking up to the lies that have been told to us for many years, and we're seeing the connections between different communities. Me, myself, I'm a Black Palestinian, and so I've always tried to lead workshops, I've always tried to talk about the intersections of the Black community as well as the Palestinian community, the historical connections that we've had, but also the present day connections that we've had. And so for me, I think the most enlightening thing that we're seeing at this point in time is people want to know more. Every day, I get people texting me, I get people DMing me on what does this mean? What is this specific topic? And I thank God that, you know, I'm in a position where, you know, I can share that information with people and they trust me with that. Just like we trust a lot of our other organizers too, to help carry the work, to help move the work forward, and to help keep you guys safe and put you guys in a position where we can really make change in Cleveland. Cleveland is, I know that, you know, maybe the New Yorkers won't say it, but Cleveland is one of the most important spots in the United States for Palestine.
I agree.
And so we have the opportunity here to confront Zionism. Cleveland is the second biggest Zionist lobby outside of New York in America. So it is up to us as Palestinians, as supporters, as people of conscience, to do our duty to confront Zionism wherever it is. Whether it's back in Palestine, whether it's in Ohio, whether it's in Cleveland. So we rely on you guys to help us. Like, I can't remember who said it, but yeah, I'm tired. But our brothers and sisters in Gaza right now, in the West Bank, in 48, are even more tired than us. So we need to keep going to get the future that we want to live in. And as Palestinian youth, as a member of the PYM, we think it's very important for the youth to be involved in our struggle because they're the ones that are going to be living in a future Palestine and be able to create some of the decisions and the life that we could see in the future. So with that being said, please come to the rally on Monday the 20th. Please come to the art gallery at the Beit Hanina Community Center on Sunday. If you can't make it to that, there's a book club at Al-Awda Tea House. If you can't make it to that, there's going to be something else. And we're going to try and... There's a Know Your Rights workshop tomorrow that I'll be leading. Me and Mohammed Faraj will be leading a Know Your Rights workshop. So we count on you to keep us going, and you guys are the ones that give us energy. So thank you guys, and free Palestine.
Thank you, Chance. I just want to let everybody know there will be questions in a moment. We have a few more speakers, but we will be having a question and answer session at the end of this session like we did the last one. So I just want to let everybody know that. Do we have flyers for these upcoming events?
It's all on Instagram.
It's on Instagram. Okay. So
if you fill out the email list, we can email you the whole list.
Okay. So yeah, we do have the email list, so you should be getting updates through the email list. Again, the best accounts to follow would be Cleveland.Palestine, Resistance 48, CAIR Ohio Cleveland. There's also PSL NE Ohio.
Yes, PSL. Yes.
And I'm sure JVP Clee is also on Instagram.
No, we're not. We're on Facebook.
Oh, I guess we're on Facebook, but
there's a website.
We just want to reiterate and make sure that everybody, sees all of the different events that are going on. We have them, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So alhamdulillah, we will, see you all there. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Shereen Naser, who Dr. Naser is an educational researcher and community organizer. She is a Palestinian from the city of Birzeit and is the daughter of Nasib Zaki Naser and May Adib Aranki. So without further ado, here's Dr. Naser.
I feel very strange turning my back to people.
It's an Arab thing.
Yeah, it feels very weird. I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes so I don't go over. Usually I prepare something, and I don't know who thought to give me a mic today. I apologize in advance. I'm going to speak a little bit differently than other folks. I want to talk about grief. I think that is important for us because this moment is deeply emotional. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit, I'm going to get a little vulnerable with y'all and tell you a little bit about a personal story. I am no stranger to grief. Grief is very familiar to me. I lost my mom when I was 7 years old. I lost my grandfather when I was 14. I'm one of 8 kids. I lost a sister. She was 8 years old in 2016, and I lost my youngest sibling, my brother, in 2021. Grief is very common for many Palestinians. But one thing I have noticed, grief is love with nowhere left to go. Grief is love unspent. I remember when my mom died, my father's family and my mother's family at the time were beefing. They were fighting, as many Arab families do. But when my mother passed, there was no more of that. Everyone came together. And I remember I was young, and I just remember thinking, wow, it's so nice to have everybody here together. When my grandfather died, there was beef in my family, and everyone came together and sat at the same table and ate together, and there was none of it. And I remember thinking, this is really nice. I wonder why my grandfather had to die for this to happen. When my sister died, my mom and her sister were fighting, and she came to our house, and she cooked us dinner every night and took care of my mom like they'd never fought before. And I remember thinking, it's so sad my sister had to die for them to be able to do this with each other. And at the time, my sister was very sick. She was in the hospital for a long time, and her nurse, who took care of her day and night, was a gay woman. She was a lesbian. And my family struggled with that. But my mom held her hands, and she said, we love you. It doesn't matter. We love you. Thank you for taking care of our kid. And I remember thinking, damn, where was this love in my parents before? Why did it take my sister dying for them to hold the hands of someone maybe they don't agree with? When my brother passed away, we had family come from all over the country that we hadn't seen in many years, and I remember thinking, damn, I wonder why it took so long for them to come visit. When Tamir Rice died and people stormed into the streets, I remember thinking, damn, I wonder why this young kid had to die for people to stand in the streets and say, what the fuck? When trans kids started killing themselves because of bullying and people started talking about it in my educational community and research, and I said, damn, I wonder why it took these trans kids having to take their lives for people to listen to these kids saying, hey, I'm being bullied and it hurts. And now I'm sitting here wondering why it took us holding our dead children up on screens, thousands of dead children, for the world to suddenly turn around and say, oh man, this is really fucked up. But grief is love unspent. Grief is love with nowhere left to go, and I look around this room and I see all of your gorgeous faces. And if that's what it took for us to get together, then so be it. But my charge to each person in this room is that there not be another dead kid on our screens in any of our communities. Not one more dead child held up in our faces for us to feel like we can get up and do something. I wish I was asked to say something positive and something with solutions, and if I feel like if I had the solution, we wouldn't be in this mess. And I'd be maybe very rich, I don't know. But I look around and I do see hope. I do see hope that we are all together. When I was at the march in DC, I'd been to the Women's March, and I remember looking around being like, this place is very white. But I went to the March for Palestine, and I remember looking around and saying, every single community is represented here. I sat on the train with people on the ride in who were disability justice activists with keffiyehs and Palestinian flags. I stood in front and I watched that stage. I watched Macklemore get on stage, y'all. I watched not one, not two, but 3 people from the indigenous community here get on that stage and speak, moms holding children on their hip. I got up and I watched not 1, not 2, not 5, but 6 black people come on that stage and say, we are with you. The way you were with Angela Davis, the way we will be with you from now as we all fight our oppressor. I remember looking around and saying, I was sitting, and actually the whole row in front of me was people who were deaf, so they could see the person silently, and there were like 50 people in front of me. That is the world I want to live in. Yes. That is the world I want to raise my kids in. And if it took thousands of dead Palestinian children for us to create that world together, then the sacrifice is worth it. But again, not one more dead children before we keep this work going. Thank you.
Yeah, it was something. I have to comment too. I was in DC also. I'm sure there were many other people in this room, and it was really very inspiring to see so many different kinds of people from all different walks of life. You had queer Palestinians there, you had people, Algerian flags, Georgian flags, Armenian flags, Vietnamese, Sahrawi Republic, yes. You had all different kinds of people, all different political groups, liberal, communist, socialist, even a few libertarians I spoke to. So really, it was great to see everybody coming together to defend Palestine. One more comment. This was something that came to my mind when I was introducing Dr. Naser, but her family comes from the city of Berzeit, which is a well-known city in Palestine. There's a well-known university there, and just to give some information to people who may not have heard, this university during this current last month of war was raided by the Israeli occupation forces, and they did damage some of their equipment, some of their databases, some of their archives. It's in the West Bank, it's not in Gaza. So when I saw the name of the city, I just thought I had to share this information to people who may not be aware. But I'm gonna move on. It says we have 2 more speakers, is that right, John? Yeah, okay. So our next speaker is going to be CSM. And C is an organizer, co-director and movement chaplain with IRTF Cleveland, which is the InterReligious Task Force. Specifically, this is on Central America branch. It's a human rights organization that uses popular education, mutual aid, and direct action to transform consumer behaviors, corporate and government policies for collective liberation. It was founded in the US after we funded the Contras in El Salvador in 1980, which killed 2 Clevelanders. And IRTF is proud to center those impacted by state violence from Colombia to Canada in their work, especially Afro-Indigenous communities, workers, queer and disabled folks. IRTF has co-founded the Cleveland Pandemic Response Ohio Fair Trade Network, the Immigration Working Group of Cleveland, Northeast Ohio Workers Center, Northeast Ohio Medic Collective, among many other projects. So without further ado, here is C.
I'm with you, I feel weird. My name is, I go by C, my last name is Stonebraker-Martinez. It's just long and hard, and so thank you. You make it so hard. I feel like Chance, like, why do I have to go after you? My dear friend Shereen, she said everything that needs to be said, but I'll do my best. My heart is pounding because of how deeply I love you. Palestinians have taught me that existence is resistance, and that is something that we say in Latin America as well. Mi resistir es mi existir, and mi existir es mi resistir. I'm deeply humbled to be invited to visit your beautiful homeland in 2017 as someone who works in Latin American solidarity work, and to visit the West Bank and to meet powerful people like Sahar Vardi, who has resisted conscription and has been prisoned for resisting military service, and Ahmed Tamimi, whose family is just incredible in their persistence. And during my, despite my peaceful posture, I was strip searched by the Israeli government, and I was reminded that that is one small sacrifice compared to the many sacrifices that my family, my chosen family members, who are Palestinian siblings, go through every day. My family is a Mbeda descendant from what's currently known as Colombia, and here in, well, actually right over the Ohio border in western Pennsylvania, there's a place called Combined Systems Incorporated. They're the second largest tear gas manufacturer in the United States. And even though tear gas is banned by the Geneva Conventions for use in war, it's used on domestic populations all over the world. In Palestine, in Colombia, in Ferguson, and just Monday in Atlanta. The School of Americas, a US military training institute, has trained over 65,000 military and law enforcement personnel across the Western Hemisphere in counterinsurgency and civilian targeted warfare. When tear gas was being used on my people in Colombia, it was Palestinians who taught us how to clean the effects of that tear gas, how to heal our wounds. It was Palestinians who reached out to the people in Ferguson who were experiencing the same thing during the Michael Brown uprising. And we know that programs like the Georgia Israel Law Enforcement Exchange Program continue to export this fascism. I've been told that imperialism, that fascism is just imperialism turned in on itself. And this type of exchange is a clarifying of just these civilian these civilian targeted war processes. Racialized, gendered, abled, capitalist, settler, colonial imperialism is a fuller name of this disease. The more of us who speak out, the safer it will be for all of us who speak. The more of us who act, the safer it will be for those of us who choose to act and are able to act. The more of us who are empowered to persist, the more others will feel empowered to persist. I hate this narrative that there's some sort of apathy or fatigue that can possibly be had. Each day, the depth of my love and the enormity of my grief grows. Just like my love. My love doesn't have any limits. Just because I love you doesn't mean that I can't love them just as much. Genocide is happening in many places simultaneously. We are all in solidarity with the First Nations people of what my people call Abya or what Norteños call Turtle Island. With the people of Guam, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, the Ngoro, I'm sorry, I can't ever say that. Karabakh, thank you. That are facing, with what they're facing from Azerbaijan. People who are Tigray people, people who are Assyrian and Syriac and Yazidi and Druze, with Uyghurs, with South Sudanese, with people in Darfur, with people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Nigeria, in Western Sahara, in West Papua, in the Philippines, in Haiti, and in every corner of the world where violence has occurred and continues to occur. Violence not only harms us physically, but also spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. You all know that. It hardens our hearts and strips us of our humanity. The world is collapsing around us, but we don't have to collapse with it. We can honor our needs for rest and also show up for the collective. I want to end with this from Randy Woodley. My understanding is that our responsibility as Indigenous people is to be keepers of the land. That means the whole of all the ecosystems and all the human systems, and not just human animals, but non-human animals as well. That is my job on Earth. That is the job I take seriously while I am here. When the land is used badly and the community of creation is mistreated, everything becomes out of balance and in disharmony. Anywhere on Earth can be a place of harmony when you understand your role. We must show up for each other, and especially for the people here who've been gifted with the skills to progress our collective struggle for liberation. I'm looking at you right now. And I wrote this before what you said, Shereen. It just makes so much sense that we would be in sync in this way. May you breathe out your grief and in your connection to all of this love.
So we do have one more speaker. This would be the Reverend Doug Horner, who is a longtime anti-war activist. He's also a United Church of Christ minister, a community organizer, and a board member of Cleveland Peace Action. So is Reverend Horner?
Thank you very much. You want the stick?
I have to say I'm going to bring a little bit of a different vibe, and I hope you don't mind, because I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up thinking that Thanksgiving was a time when the Indians and the Pilgrims got together and they put their bows and arrows and their weapons down, and they all got turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes. You know?
Yeah.
Can I just tell you that one of my favorite Psalms, I'm a pastor, right? I can do this. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 82, where it says, "Rise up, O God, judge the earth, for all the nations are your inheritance." I have to put my glasses on because I'm 63 years old and my eyes don't work like they used to. Thank you. Don't worry about it. I'll be able to see. And one of my other Psalms, you know, Psalm 23, I won't read the whole of it, but I said, even though we walk through the darkest valley, We fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's the house that we're creating, us cousins. We're creating this house. See, I'm a progressive Christian. And this psalm is sacred to me and to many, many people, and it's a religious tradition, but religion doesn't define me. I'm a progressive, but my politics don't define me. I am white, middle-class, male, Protestant, born in New Jersey, living in Cleveland, Ohio, the United States of America. That doesn't define me. As I've gotten older, my thinking has changed, expanded. I am a human, evolving. I think that's the best part about being human is that we evolve. We have the capacity to grow and learn new things. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I know a little bit about what the IDF does. I know a little bit about what happens at the School of the Americas. But doing a history research paper in college, after I got out of the service, I came across some disturbing information that made me cringe. And I started to dig a little bit more and realized that way back in colonial times, the U.S. settlers, pioneers, and colonizers cleared the land of Native Americans, and those who resisted they killed and ran out of town, hunted, scalped, put on reservations, had their food supplies taken and their water poisoned. And today, indigenous people still live. There are more than 500 federally recognized indigenous nations comprising nearly 3 million people, descendants of the 15 million native people who once inhabited this land. This century-long genocidal program of the U.S. settler colonial regime has largely been omitted from history, but it is not forgotten just because some people want it to be ignored. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz wrote a book, An Indigenous People's History of the United States, that challenges the founding myth of the United States and shows how policy against the indigenous peoples was colonialist, designed to seize the territories of the original inhabitants, displacing or eliminating them. I don't need to tell you this, but you should read the book if you haven't. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. And I learned that during these policies, the popular culture was kept apprised of what was happening by well-known writers like James Fenimore Cooper and Walt Whitman. And shockingly, the genocidal policy reached its zenith under President Andrew Jackson. And its ruthlessness was best articulated by U.S. Army General Thomas Jessup in 1836, who wrote, "The country can be rid of them only by exterminating them." I'm a descendant of James Fenimore Cooper. My middle name's Cooper, by the way. But I have evolved, and so has our nation. We are in a different place. As we've heard this evening, people feel, you can feel that our nation is evolving. But the bad news is that history repeats itself. And history is written by the conquerors. But here's the thing. As Israel acts out their own version of ethnic cleansing, they will want to write their own history. And you and I, and millions around us like in the world, we're telling the real story, and it is televised. Citizens of the world are calling out the IDF, the settlers, Netanyahu, calling out the escalation, calling out the war crimes. Questions are being asked. Is it genocide? They're arguing about it. God suffers with the people who are displaced from their land and who are suffering. A Palestinian Christian pastor in Bethlehem named Reverend Munthar Isaac tells stories about the annihilation going on. I personally cannot begin to understand what it's like to live there. Most of us are horrified. But what we realize is that good people the world over have become more vocal opposing this genocide. And the more and more good people that get together and speak their minds, well, maybe it will help. Now, the United Church of Christ, of which I'm a part, has a response, and I admit it's not enough, but it is something. We've been writing letters. We've got over 1 million people in the country and in the world. We wrote this letter to Congress. I'll just briefly give it to you. From the Global Ministries of the United Church of Christ to Representative Chantel Brown, J.D. Vance, Senator Shereen Brown, President of the United States. Please call for a ceasefire, for an end to the Gaza blockade, and for creation of safe spaces for Gazan non-combatants, for the release of hostages unharmed, and oppose further militarization. So there are 1 million people that are saying this to their politicians. They're also saying the devastating loss of life in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories since October 7th has overshadowed what had already been one of the deadliest years for both peoples in recent memory. While efforts must be intensified to halt the bloodshed, appeal to all parties to respect international human law and firmly promote long-term diplomatic efforts, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza must be addressed immediately. So I have 2 more things that I want to say, and then I will end. First, an immediate end to the war in Israel-Palestine is imperative, but it will not solve any of the underlying issues. The people under siege and trapped in Gaza and the West Bank now. We're hearing more problems in the West Bank. They're in desperate need of humanitarian aid, food, water, medical attention. Their lives and well-being must be preserved. The rights and dignity of Palestinians and Israelis must equally be valued, affirmed, and protected. As a just peace church, the United Church of Christ stands with millions around the world to affirm that a durable and just peace will depend on addressing the root causes: the rights, dignity, equality, land, access to resources, and occupation of all people. We call for an end to the violence in Israel and Gaza. And then the second thing I want to say is God suffers with people who are suffering. Reverend Munthar Isaac wrote, "Where is the God of this land?" And he's in Bethlehem now. Where is the God of this land? God is not like all other gods. His land is plowed with iron. His temples are destroyed by fire. His people are trampled underfoot, and he does not move a muscle. The God of this earth is hidden from view. You search for his traces but do not see them. You long for him to split the heavens and come down to see, to listen, to be compassionate, to be saved. The God of this land does not repel brutal armies, but rather shares one fate with his people. His house is demolished. His son is crucified, but his mystery does not perish. Rather, he rises from the ashes, and with the refugees you see him. He walks with the ones who must walk. The tired, the tattered, the torn. And in the dark of the night, he raises springs of hope. Without this God, Palestine remains a scorched land. It remains a field of destruction. But God will make it a holy land, a land in whose hills the good news of peace resounds. Beloved, God is under the rubble of Gaza. He is with the frightened and the refugees. He is in the operating room. His rod and his staff are being used by the doctors and nurses and rescuers and first responders, used to pull people out of harm's way. He walks with us through the valley of the shadow of death. If we want to pray, my prayer is that those who are suffering will feel this healing and comforting presence. And we have one more comfort, and that is, out of the rubble, God will rebuild God's people. This is true throughout history. In our brokenness, pain, and death, let us remember that the children of Palestine who are suffering now have been placed in the arms of God. Theirs is the kingdom. God calls them, come to me, you who are hurt and weary, for yours is the kingdom. This is our faith, this is our consolation and our pain.
So we will be having a Q&A session shortly and an open discussion, but first Don wanted to share something. So
I wanted to thank Jeff Kassouf, Take One Video. Did I get the name right? Take One Video for videoing tonight, and all Jeffrey asked was that Cleveland Peace Action make a contribution to PCRF, which we did, and he asked we do it in the name of Margaret and Elias Kassouf, his deceased parents. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Don. So I think now, are we ready for the Q&A? Yeah, go ahead.
4 o'clock, Playhouse Square.
Kim.
I'd like to thank we also the former chair of This will be quick. Francis Chiappa, maybe you would stand up, longtime chair of Cleveland Peace Action. That's number one. And I put newsletters for Peace Action on both doors enough to go around, but you'll see what we do. The second thing is, we mentioned Shereen Abu-Akleh, but I would mention Nura Erakat, who spoke to us in 2019 in Cleveland, inspirational, but since then, her relative was shot down while he was on his way to getting married, if I remember. Do I have that right? Yeah. And so Nura Erakat here in the United States had to live with the loss of her beloved relative in the West Bank. So there's the Nura Erakat program, so we have lots and lots of people to remember. The last thing I'll say is, get organized. Organized people can win against organized money. We know $100 billion is slated for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Palestine. So that's who's unified against us. They won't do a ceasefire. Let's have a ceasefire.
Thank you, Karen. The gentleman over here. What's your name? Patrick. Amina's going to Thank you.
My name's Patrick. I wondered whether there's a mechanism in place where the media gets notified ahead of time of all these protests so that they can be there filming this or writing about it the next day in the paper, and whether that will happen on Monday.
Can I answer that? We send out press releases all the time, and they don't come. They don't cover these demonstrations like they do other demonstrations. We had, how many people did we have on Public Square on November 4th? One TV station showed up, and there was no coverage in the Plain Dealer the next day. So this is our local media that's failing us. And I would say, in line with this, the Israeli narrative is told very well. They have a wonderful public relations arm that amplifies this, and of course the Jewish community here follows suit with that. Up to now, we haven't really heard the Palestinian story. We have in this room, but it hasn't echoed beyond us. But I agree with what a few people have said here tonight. This is the moment. This is the moment where that is going to be, where we have to shine a light on Palestine and show that Palestine does have the right to exist. And we have to guarantee that by our presence.
Thank you, Francis.
I was just going to suggest that
maybe if flyers could be handed out to people as well, because there's a lot of bystanders that they're not part of this movement. And if they're given something in paper to take home with them, then maybe they'll start getting involved. So that's a suggestion I'd like to make at every protest. If some piece of paper could be handed out, telling people of the different groups that they can be involved in, what they can do, something of that nature. We need to inform people.
Thank you, Patrick. Oh, we have a response.
I have a response to that. That's a very good idea. For as long as I've been doing the demonstrations down there against the baseball team, the paper ends up on the ground. It's been my experience, and what I've done is actually pulling people to the side, especially when they ask, well, what is this about? And then talking to them, taking that time while you're down there to actually talk to them. And give you an example of what I'm talking about. Back in 1999, we had our conference on racism in sports and media over at Cleveland College. We did a funeral procession with a Chief Wahoo that was liberated from someone's front yard. And the artist had built a coffin, and we went around the entire complex, Gateway Complex. And then we burned that effigy in a 55-gallon drum that we liberated from somebody's property the night before. And that was Vernon Belcourt's idea. We had a Polish man from Parma come there, and he asked what this is about, and we spoke to him. And this is what I'm talking about. When you connect to people from here, from your heart, you see it in their eyes. You know when they get it. Because I stood there and explained to him, I said, it's just like what the oppression that we feel is the same kind of oppression that Polish Jews felt during Hitler's reign of terror. And he stood there with that baseball cap on, and he took it off and he started crying. And he said, my father bought me this when I was a young boy, and had I known that it hurt people that badly, I would have never worn it. And he threw it in the fire. And all of us young guys, I was young back then, we went nuts, hooping and hollering, but you could see in his eyes when it clicked, when he got it, when he was enlightened. That's what I'm talking about when we do demonstrations. And I heard somebody in the community, you know, I'm going to name her name, Cynthia Conley, sat there at a meeting with us and said, I don't know why you guys still continue to do demonstrations. They don't work. Now, we're talking about the person that is now the program director for the City Club of Cleveland, who's not from Cleveland, and is only pushing her own agenda here, using our Native community to push herself up. Those are the things that are going on behind the scenes in our community. For her to sit there and say that it doesn't work is not true. Because what did it take for them to finally change that? Unfortunately, it took the murder of a black man that wasn't even in this state, because they couldn't say anything about it while they were still perpetrating the oppression against our people. They had to change it. They had no choice. And I feel it's absolutely disgusting that we fought for almost 60 years against that baseball team, and it took the murder of a black man to get them to open their eyes. Yep. So when you're down there at the demonstration, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to be there. I took a house painting job in Florida because there's not much work here for me. So my prayers are going to be with you guys down there. I'm going to put down my tobacco, and I'm going to send up smoke to give you guys strength to get through it and pull them people aside and talk to them one-on-one. That is the best way to change people's hearts and minds.
Thank you, cousin. I wanted to respond to your statement question as well really quickly. Two things. It is helpful when we have our own media folks, people who decide what the picture is and what the narrative is that they're going to share to the media, sometimes after the fact, because we want to control the narrative about like how what our demands are and how we've been treated in our struggle. The other thing is sometimes we can't always put press releases out before the event because of security reasons, because the state is getting more and more repressive. We have to be really careful sometimes about what our targets are and let people know after the fact how courageous and bold we were. But I would just encourage everyone, like our sibling Phil here has said, these relationships take time. So if you're new to the movement, that's great, we welcome you. We're so grateful that you're here. Take a moment to build the relationships and to just keep listening. The groups to follow and the people to follow, they will make themselves known because you'll keep seeing them over and over again.
So just one quick announcement, and then we will be going to David's question over there. But I would just like to encourage everybody, please, to check out the PCRF, Palestine Children's Relief Fund table that is set up on the other side of the room, over by the refreshments and food. They are taking donations from there, and we strongly encourage everyone to please donate to PCRF. They are the main, they're the main, I guess, would you say administrator? I'm not exactly sure what the word would be, but Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza is their hospital, and that hospital has been very badly damaged in this current fighting. So we encourage everybody, please donate. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go back to Amina.
One of the deadly sins is supposed to be pride, but I'm proud that I started this committee, Middle East Peace Committee of Peace Action, probably, I don't know how many, 20 years ago? I don't know. But with Doug Kerr, and it was great. We started things, we were advised at the time not to do that because of the strength of the Jewish Community Federation, the voice of power, and we were advised not to do it because it would tear our organization apart. And I remember around that time that I met Jeffrey, your father, and Jeff, you called me brother because I think I was one of the only Jewish people that was speaking for Palestinian rights at the time. But I will say that about myself is that I am the son of a Nazi Holocaust survivor. My mom was one of the first peace activists I knew. She was on the Peace March with Don and Stephen and other people. But she, at 93, is still speaking to groups about her escaping from Nazi Germany. And when I say she's a Nazi Holocaust survivor, I specifically say it that way because there are other Holocausts. There have been other Holocausts. There still are other Holocausts. Last thing I'll say is that I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter that when I called her on the phone today and said I was coming to this, I asked her what message she would want me to share. She said, and choked up, she said, sham. That's her friend who lives in Israel. She's a Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, who she befriended while she lived in Beechwood for a couple of years, and her family moved back there in June. And my daughter is just as worried about her as she is my dozens of Israeli Jewish relatives that live in Israel. Some of whom, most of whom were opposed to the occupation, but some of whom, since October 7th, have been called back to fight in the Israeli army. And I think about what if one of my relatives killed one of Sham's family. The last thing I will say is that, as Philip suggests, we have to understand that there are different points of view. There are Zionists who oppose the occupation. There are Zionists who believe in Palestinian rights. I'm one of them.
Thank you, David. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I see Amina over there, so I'm going to bring it over to her.
It's not a question. I just want to say, as the Shoshone Paiute Palestinian woman who lived the first years of her life on Duck Valley, my reservation, I'm so proud of all of you. This makes my heart happy.
Anybody else? It's an open forum, so even if it's not a question, if it's a statement, if anybody has an announcement, feel free to just raise your hand. We have a couple over here. Kim, I'm sorry, I will pass you because we have not heard from this young woman over here. What's your name?
Hi guys, I'm Shereen.
Hi, Shereen.
So, I don't know if any of you guys know about how Israel had a protest in Washington right after ours. So I did just see on social media that people are forwarding it. It says, please everyone call this number and tell them that we thank the bus drivers for walking off the job taking Israel supporters to Washington, D.C. Pro-Israel protest and not supporting the genocide in Gaza. Press 0 for the operator and please get it done ASAP. So apparently the bus drivers that did take the Israeli supporters, you know, the pro-Israels, they walked off on the job. So, so there was no way of, you know, people coming from Detroit or anywhere that the bus drivers picked them up, there was no way on getting home. And then there was another post later on saying that their flights that they did book to get back home were all delayed. So there was no way of them getting back home for probably another 2 days.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear. So I'm going to bring it to Kim for a quick question.
There is something inspiring that I remember. Janet Lair was on our Cleveland Peace Action Board, and when the drivers drove into the mosque door to try to attack the mosque, the Grand Mosque, people remember that? In 2009, some people do. Janet's friend Vera Hall said, we've got to go out on the rain and sit in front of the shop of our favorite Palestinian restaurant to let people know that we stand between the people who might come and attack the shop and the shop owner who's always treated us well. So it's little acts of courage like that. She was 90 years old at that time. She's since passed. And so I think we stand on the shoulders of the women as well as the men who came before us and honor the elders and then get out in the street. Mother Jones said, warn the dead and work like hell for the living.
Any other questions? Okay. Hi, nice to meet you.
You too. It's very inspiring to see so many young people getting involved because that is what it's going to take, and for you to passing the baton down. So thank you all, you young people, for getting involved.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Okay. I also wanted to let everybody know to check out the different AIM chapters pages. I just saw before I came here today that there was something going on with AIM Southern California over the past couple of days. They've had their rallies with the Palestinian people there. There's been rallies all over where full chapters have actually been there and did speaking engagements also. I kind of wish that our chapter, we had more membership, more people involved, but with the state of some of the young people nowadays, you know, there's something that we are mandated to be a member of the American Indian movement and to be on a board position. You cannot have any drugs or alcohol in your system. And that's including Pajit, which all you know as cannabis. Our people didn't use it the way it's used now. So to get membership into our organization is very difficult because everybody's out there getting stoned, or they're still on the white man's poison. But yeah, definitely, I would definitely check out some of the AIM pages and support them, you know, in their struggles with what's going on here. You know, we talk about the, you know, some kid come to me about what the pastor said about reservations, you know, and probably a lot of you don't know this, so here's a little Native American history during Native American History Month. We call them reservations, and that's what the government calls them. But what they don't want you to know is that they're actually considered prisoner of war camps, and each one of them has a separate number. Prisoner of war camp, such and such.
They're gulag.
Yeah, and in my opinion, Gaza is a prisoner of war camp. When you look at how many people are in that small area, so it's almost like if they would do that to our people, cram them all in there, instead of bombing us, what they did was they went in there and they stole our kids and put them in boarding schools where they knew these priests and nuns were raping them, killing them, burying them with no headstones. It's disgusting that all these children, our future of humanity, is gone from that area, you know, and it's both sides, Palestinian babies and Israeli babies.
Thanks so much. So if there's not any other more pressing questions or statements by anybody, I think we're probably going to wrap up the question and answer comment section of the night. I don't know if Don or Amina, do you have anything else to add?
Close it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, Amina.
Oh, sorry. Thank you two for emceeing tonight, Amina and Jeffrey. Yes. We were going to do breakouts and talk about, you know, strategizing for the future, but we're not going to do that tonight because it went over a little bit. But the breakout groups were action, BDS, intersectionality, and outreach. But on BDS, that's boycott, divestment, and sanctions, let's keep in mind that the Cuyahoga County Council treasurer has purchased $19 million in Israel bonds. Not only is it a bad investment, but it's also extremely racist and it's demeaning, and it benefits the occupation.
It entrenches the occupation. It pays for the settlement.
It pays for the occupation. And the state of Ohio has purchased $105 million in bonds over the years, Israel bonds, okay? So what we're asking is to go to the Cuyahoga County Council meeting and testify against the impropriety of them buying these bonds. There's been a few of us there over the years. It's time to start going back again. And C had a great idea to close us out with a song. Thank you so much tonight for everyone.
Thank you. I think we just need to, like, you know, really get in our bodies for a second and just like release something. So I'll teach the song really quickly. Join in when you're able. The words are: rebel against the wars they sell. Rebel against the lies they tell. Rebel and let us get this right. Rebel for all the children in Gaza tonight. This is a song by the Peace Poets. rebels against the wars they sell. Rebel against the lies they tell. Rebel against the lies they tell. Rebel, and let us get this right. Rebel, and let us get this right. Rebel for all the children in Gaza tonight. Rebel for all the children in Gaza tonight. Rebel against the wars they sell. Rebel against the wars they sell. Rebel against the lies they tell. Rebel against the lies they tell. Rebel, and let us get this right. Rebel, and let us get this right. Rebel for all the children in Gaza tonight. Rebel for all the children in Gaza tonight. All together, and if you can, and when you can join in, please do. Rebel against the wars they sell. Rebel against the lies